Well, sorry for the wait. How are you guys doing? Thank you for being here today. My name is Masimin. On behalf of the BA team, thank you and welcome to Done and Dusted 2021. For today's event, the topic is Swipe or Match, a career and personality dilemma. This event is collaboration with CycleMate. We have been looking forward to this event and we hope you guys enjoy this event and have a great time. Without further ado, I pass this to Kashmir, our moderator, to introduce and also to begin the session. To you, Kash.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As we are about to begin, I would like to seek your cooperation in completing this event. Kindly answer the poll. There is a QR code on your top right of the screen. You may answer throughout the whole live stream. All right, I'll begin now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow students, and respected lecturers. It is my pleasure to be the MC for this event. I am Kashmir Rifat, and on behalf of Academics, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule to join us today. To begin this event, I am pleased to introduce our special guest speaker for today, Ms. Hetal Doshi. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from National University of Singapore and Masters in Organizational Psychology from Macquarie University, Sydney, Australia. Ms. Hetal has specialized in human resources consulting and training for many years, specializing in consulting, training, coaching, psychometric testing, developing assessment centers, development, outplacement, and crisis consulting. She is a co-founder of Next Up Asia, a media brand which curates video content and interviews with top regional business leaders, influencers, and thinkers who share their insights, perspectives, and trends on companies, creativity, and citizens. Ms. Hetal is also a CEO of OPsych, a registered organizational psychologist and a certified coach. I'll hand over the microphone and the virtual stage to Ms. Hetal Doshi to begin her talk. To you, Ms. Hetal.
Hi everyone, my name is Hazel. Lovely to be with all of you. I'm just going to do a quick check. Do we know how many people are here right now? How many people do we have right now with us? Kash, do we know how many of us are here in the session?
As of now, we have 107 watching us right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, welcome to all of you, 107 of you. Happy International Day to all my lovely sisters over here and to all the men who obviously are. And if you aren't supporting women, you should as well. So this session is really, really super valuable for me. Probably the reason why I am the way that I am and who I've become as well is because of my career. So I guess most of you would be wondering, what should I do with my career? What kind of jobs should I take? And I'd love that you continue to check with me on the chat function as well, because it's so daunting to just talk to myself right now. So let me just share with you a couple of things right now about myself and my history or my career. And I would love to just share with you how, to begin with, that our careers will not be a linear path. It's always going to be a mishmash of everything in between. So can I have the screen to be shared? Do we have the screen on right now? Okay, perfect. Very good. So I love the topic. It's swipe or match. It's so Tinder. And those of you who have a chance, I would love for you to watch Auntie Seema on Netflix. It's about a matchmaker in India. As you would know, in India, majority of the marriages back then, now it's different. They used to have arranged marriages. So they would look at two people and see whether or not they would be a good match for each other. So when I was asked to run this program, it really reminded me of that particular story or that particular thing called Indian matchmaking on Netflix. So I work as an organizational psychologist, which I think is the coolest job in the world. It has such a huge combination of clinical psychology, counseling psychology, sports psychology, because it's all about performance. It has so much to do with performance psychology, so much to do with the business world. It's so much to do with being a human being, and most of all, the ability to work with lots of different people to make magic happen. So really, absolutely, absolutely love my job. And maybe I'll just share with you a little bit about how I became the way that I am today, because that's so much to do with the topic of whether or not I should have stuck with a particular situation or should I have swiped it. Okay, so this is a little bit of my background. So please connect either via mobile phone. Please do not throw it around. And then eventually people call me for pizzas or something. That's my email address. That's me on Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you'd like to join the support group, then there's Mental Health at Work on Facebook as well. So a little bit about my history. That's mini me. And I would really love that all of you just get a chance right now to think about yourself. So if I could just get you to just maybe close your eyes for a minute and try to imagine the baby version of you when you were growing up. You know, that famous picture of yours that you remember or that your parents use all the time? I'd like you to just gently close your eyes and invite that image to you and connect with that particular small little mini me version of yourself. So please take a minute, just breathe, relax, and invite that image to you and just listen to who that child really is and who that child really wants to be in life. Okay, so that's me. At the core of me, if I recall who I was and what I was really known for as a child, it would already have been in the space of healing. What do I mean by that? You know how our parents, as we grow up, our parents, I'm not sure whether some of you, your parents are together or not, but my parents are still together. But obviously, every family would have their own fights and stuff like that, right? So I remember even as a very, very young child, I was very, very sensitive towards people's feelings being hurt. So in my family, very patriarchal family back then, now everybody's very, very cool. But every time my dad would say something to my mom that offended me or, I felt hurt her, I would get really, really upset and I would feel the need to do something about it. And from a very young age, the moment I knew how to write, I would begin to write letters to my dad and say, I saw you doing this to mom, or I heard you saying this to mom, and I don't think it's right. I think you should apologize to her. And it would be difficult for me to voice it out as a child, but the moment I could start writing my thoughts, I would write it down. I would put it into an envelope and I would put it into my dad's cupboard. So he'd have a cupboard. The moment you close the cupboard, you can kind of wedge a letter into it. And so in the morning, my dad is a very early riser. He'd be the first one to open his cupboard, obviously. The moment he opens his cupboard, there would be a letter that would drop. And in that letter, it would be an expression of what I think is the right way to behave in a family unit. And so, I began to behave like a grandmother, I think, from a very, very young age. And from that perspective of I didn't like people being hurt. And I would do this every single time, every single opportunity. And that was who really Hetal was. And quite frankly, this is who Hetal really is. A very, very sensitive person to other people's moods, emotions, and a need to make things in systems right. I wouldn't be able to articulate this back then, but as I reflect now, that's really who I was. And I think everybody would say that. I was never afraid later on, the moment I felt like I could. I was never really afraid to talk about things that were difficult to talk about, but I felt were unjust. And so I would be even sitting with uncles who are 80 years old, 70 years old, aunties who are 50 years old. And I wouldn't hold my tongue. I would just tell them, Auntie, I think what you did was wrong. Uncle, I think what you said was wrong. And, my poor parents, I think it started with pinching me under the table saying, you shouldn't talk to aunties and uncles like that, to actually then patting me on my back and saying, you know what, that uncle or that auntie had it a long time coming. And so I think that's really who I am as a person. And I'm so glad that that spirit has never really been taken away from me, except for some parts in my life. And I've carried it on through as part of not only my career, but who I am as a person. I also then went on to, going to school. I typically like to be part of a system. I loved watching how systems work, how people work. And I like to take either the lead in it or at least find a way to make communities really, really quite meaningful. So this is a picture of me being the only Indian in my whole school in Singapore at that time. It was a mixed community of Chinese, Malays, and I was the only Indian over there. But I never felt excluded. In fact, as a kid, then I learned to pick up the Chinese language, I learned to pick up the Malay language, and both the Chinese and the Malays would love me. And in return, I would teach them a little bit of the Indian language, and all of us would kind of learn from each other. So I learned that as I grew up, I was really, really good at being able to love diverse groups of people and to be able to continue to find my space in a system and also helping that system thrive. And so at this point in time in my life in secondary school, I also took up a lot of leadership positions like being a prefect and so on and so forth. As a prefect, I didn't really enjoy the part of telling people off, but I really enjoyed the part of understanding why they would come to school late. Or one of the boys over here, if you can see, right in the front, I think he's fourth from the left. His leg is like spread out. He actually burnt the discipline master's room down because I had a very, very boisterous class. And he actually burnt it down. And I remember just sitting down with him and asking him why he did it and how much of courage he had, rather than talking about the disciplinary part of things. So I really began to become very clear about the fact that I love people, love being in systems, and love understanding why people behave the way that they do and finding a way to make the wrong become right. And I continued to, explore different cultures. I was in Australia for a very long period of time, for about 7 years. And I was really, really blessed. I got to be with, the likes of Germans, Australians, Indians from India, because I'm an Indian from Singapore. That's totally different as well. And continuing to go on that path. But there came a point in my life where I didn't know what I wanted to do. So although, and I think all of you, I think the biggest problem that I would imagine all of you have is the inability to really see who you are before you start to use psychological tools. So I think at this point, what I really like to say is, in this picture over here, I began to really wonder what decision I would make in terms of my university. And so at that point in time, so before I managed to get this picture, before I actually ended up going to Australia, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So here's a wonderful story about what my dad, so that's my dad and my mom. And this is what my dad told me to do. So I would really, really highly like all of you to ask your parents if they are still around. And if they are not around, you can ask anybody to describe who you really are as a person and what they imagine your world to look like. So this is a bit of a story about my mom and my dad. My dad, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, he actually told me to sit in a room, and he locked me in a room for almost about 2 to 3 days and told me to get this career book, right? So there's this career book that had all the careers in the world from A to Z, including like pottery, librarian, truck driver, rail driver, gardener, scientist, geophysicist, all kinds of things. And he told me, I'll give you food, I'll put whatever it is that you want in your room, but you're not allowed to leave the room until you cancel out every single thing that you don't want to be doing. And so as I canceled everything that I didn't want to do, I was then left with 2 choices. The book was this thick and I was left with 2 choices. And so these 2 choices were psychology and accounting. And so when I got out of the room, I told my dad, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm so excited. Now I know what I want to be or who I want to be. And he was like, okay, what is it? And I was like, oh, it's either a psychologist or an accountant. And my dad just looked at me and he was so disappointed. He's like, what? You choose two completely different things. One is about people and one is about numbers. Like, this doesn't make sense at all. And he was like, so why do you want to be an accountant? And at that point in time, it struck me that my sister was an accountant as well. And my sister is like, perfect. And so I thought maybe if I follow her path, I would also be perfect. And obviously I love numbers as well. But my dad, when he looked at me, he was like, you know what, you as a person, you are so much better with people than with numbers. And I think that should be your path going forward. If this is what you're left with, left and right, I would rather you take the path of psychology because that makes more sense. And so I was very lucky because I am a woman. And at that point in time, psychology, nobody really heard about it. That was like maybe close to about 20 years now. Nobody really heard about it. And I was very lucky being a woman or a girl at that point in time, or a young lady, because there were no real expectations of Indian girls. Whereas, someone like my brother, because as a man at that point in time, you have to take care of people, then you really have to get a real job. But as a psychologist wasn't really a real job. But because I was female, they were like, okay, you know what, whatever you love to do, that's fine, as long as you can have work-life balance, look after a man and blah, blah, blah. So I was very lucky the expectations were quite low. Otherwise, I'm not sure whether I would have ever been a psychologist if I was a guy, okay? So all our male students here who may have had to fight with your parents to be in an industry called psychology, good for you. So I took on the psychology path. So that's the story of my dad and why I think all of us should be very close to our parents, because they've seen us from day one and they probably have an idea about who we are and who we can or should be, hopefully without biasness, hopefully without worrying about society. So the problem wasn't really that, what I wanted to do with my life. I think growing up, I had a lot of security issues and issues with my self-esteem as well. And I can't really explain it, but I think everybody has issues with self-esteem and confidence. I don't think it's a unique, this only happens to Hetal. I think all of us go through that. And so I think that's where so that was the birthplace of what I wanted to do, my dad. But what really gave me the push to continue to be a person who I believed in for myself was really my mom. I was very lucky that I ended up in National University of Singapore, but there was a time that I was a really, really poor student and I was kind of failing in my exams. And, being Singaporean, failing in your exams is not a smart thing. I remember my mom actually looking at me in my eyes one day, after I had done pretty badly for consecutive, number of exams or whatever. I remember my mom looking at me in my eyes and her pupils dilating. And she said, you know what? You are going to be a superstar. And, it was that moment, that one sentence that my mom said, no matter what you think you are, who you think you are, and how badly you might think you're doing right now, you are and you will always be a superstar. And so I think when it comes to being really successful, inverted commas, in your career, or in other words, really, really loving your life and your career, I think ultimately it really depends on the messages that have been sent to you and how you've interpreted it, and also the direction and the support that you get. And it is this that cements, I think, a lot of things in our life. And so from here, I move on to taking on a whole different bunch of things in my life, from completing my master's degree, getting into my first job was to get people out of their jobs. So I was in a consulting field. My first job was to walk into organizations and tell people that they no longer had their jobs. My next job was to become an employee assistant program coach, where I was helping people with issues in their personal life and their work life. My next job was crisis consulting, which was to help people who are suicidal, and all in the space of organizations, right? Like people who are suicidal, to also help people who had experienced homicides or been in a space where they had observed homicides or murders. I was involved in pirate attacks, I was involved in a lot of things that organizations like shipping industries or high risk industries, and they have a lot of crisis and their employees go through the crisis. So I was involved in like hotline calls and helping out people in distress. And so here's where, like, although I really loved my job doing a lot of distress work, and it was really my personality to be there, but over a period of time, I had to swipe because it was just so painful and nightmarish to go through seeing people's pain, blood, trauma on a day-to-day basis. And so although there was a personality fit in a lot of parts of my career, there were times that I had to swipe. So another time that I had to swipe was when I joined a company, also as a psychologist, but I had to do a lot of assessment. So I had to do psychometric assessments for people, and I had to write reports about people. And in those reports, judgments would be made whether or not the leader would get their job or not get their job. And although I really love assessments, like I've got qualifications in DISC, MBTI, Facet 5, you name it, any personality tool, I would have had a qualification. I didn't really enjoy it because I felt it was a very judgmental space to be in, and also very prejudgmental, because without meeting the person, without really understanding the person, then making decisions about the future of that person. So I didn't really like that as a job, and I think the fit of the organization also wasn't quite there. It was a very formal kind of an environment. Everybody was very ultra professional, and everything was very by the clock, and everything was very detail oriented. And although I did reasonably well, and although it is still in the space of organizational psychology, I had to swipe. But I never swiped until I really understood everything. Yeah. So I really enjoyed my jobs and I did as well as I could. And then I felt, okay, I really don't like this space anymore. And then I swiped. Also, I never swiped most often. I never swiped until I had something else that I felt would be a better match. Then I moved into a wonderful space where my ex-boss had taken me from Singapore to Malaysia. So I'd gone from Australia, went to Singapore, and then I moved to Malaysia, and I got to, I got to run a whole space, like a business development kind of thing. I got to expand the business. I got to expand the business, Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia, so on and so forth. And I loved the job a lot. So I got to be a psychologist, but also got to be a business person. And I really loved the job. And I loved the job so much. I loved my boss so much. I loved the environment so much. It was like me being a psychologist, but also getting to run the business. And maybe about 4 years later, I had to swipe because the politics in the organization just got too much. And the people that I loved were asked to leave. And there were a lot of organizational structures that were moving. And I felt that there was so much of pain that it was inevitable, and I felt that the environment just was not good for everybody. And do I blame the organizations? Not at all. I think all organizations will go through all kinds of drama. But some of my colleagues stayed back, quite a lot left. But the organization still exists and they're still doing really well. And I really honestly love all of the founders still. And then I moved on to another couple more roles. But what I realized was one thing that makes me match is the fact that I have a pure personality fit with psychology. I have a pure values fit with psychology. But most of the time when I swipe, it would be because of the particular environment that I'm in that no longer makes me feel like I'm enjoying myself. That's one reason why I tend to swipe. And the second reason why I tend to swipe is when I have to do very detailed, structured, formal kind of roles. I really enjoy the freedom. I love creativity. And so in terms of environment, I don't like organizations that are, that have too much of hierarchy and structure. In terms of personality, I don't like too much of detail, orientation, and structure. And so having done enough of that, what I ended up doing was about 6 years ago, I set up OPsych. And the beauty about OSIC and setting up OSIC is, as a boss of the company, you no longer get to swipe anything. You no longer get to swipe anything. It's your baby, and you have to love how to learn everything. And you have to learn how to love everybody in the company, and everything needs to be a match. And so it is no longer whether I like things or I don't like things. Inside of me, I feel like I need to match with everybody. I need to match with everything. Otherwise, if I swipe, I will probably have to be the one sending in my own resignation or asking myself to quit, which will be a little bit painful because OSAC is really my company and I love everybody over here. Yeah, and because of love, I think because of all the love that I have for this industry and because of all the love that I have for the upcoming generation who I feel are so important because there's not many organizational psychologists, we have been very, very active in coming out all over media. And I just wanted to also share with all of you that just in case you think that psychology doesn't have hope or psychology may not be something that is in demand, that is complete utter rubbish. Okay, media will only capture what they think is valuable and trending. And the fact that media is constantly looking out for psychology, organizations are looking out for psychology, the world is crying out that mental health is really, really important, purely shows the fact that psychology is such an important part of existence and our career. And yeah, so we've talked so much about psychology all over, and I meet so many young students because of that. And the number one question that they will always ask me is, how do I progress in my career? How do I get the right job? And how do I progress in my career? And so what I really like to talk to you all about today is really, really understanding career, your career. Yeah, so we work with lots of different organizations. We've also had the privilege of working with the likes of the presidents of some of the biggest companies in Malaysia and taking part in some of the largest projects in Malaysia, like with Petronas, Digi, Malaysian Airlines. And really prior to this, I'm not sure whether there was really in Malaysia any or many organizational psychologists doing what we are doing. So what I really would like to talk about right now is, what is a career really? What is a career really? And I really love to get as much engagement as possible as well on the chat function. Yeah. So what is a career really? Like, now that you've heard what I've said, what do you think is really a career? Oh, the YouTube chat function. Could you send me the link? Isni, could you send me the link for YouTube? Perfect. Thank you, Isni. I didn't know that was going on as well at the same time. Okay, just give me a moment, yeah, so that I can hopefully chat with you guys as well. Am I able to see the chat function? Oh, there you guys are. Oh, okay, wow, wonderful. Okay, so is Tiffany the last one who said something? Okay, all right. So perfect. Okay, so what is a career really? I'd just like to get as much engagement as possible. I really like you to think about it. This is the most famous picture that Hetal will always show and is known for, and it's called the butterfly effect. What is really our career? The freedom of doing things that you love. Tiffany, wonderful. Yes, absolutely. What else? What else is your career? The reason why I'm saying all this is because I really need you to get into the right headspace before you make decisions about whether or not to match or to swipe. The freedom of doing things that you love. What else is your career? Isni, beautiful. It's your life. it's actually a career is actually the experiences that you have in your life. It just so happens to be called a career. But we all have a life, and career is one part of the experiences that we're going to be having till and then we die. So a career is really a point of it, things that you'd love to experience in your life. It's not really a job that you sign up for or whatever, but it's things that you love to experience and that there is an economic exchange for that experience as well. Something that you enjoy, are good at, and you get paid for. Francesca beautifully said. An occupation that we can match with. Sometimes you don't really match, but because you don't match, you also learn certain things. So I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that it's always about a match. It's actually about an experience. And then the moment you hit the butterfly, or you feel you can't leave the cocoon, then probably you want to sweat. Get money and be financially free. Opportunity to improve, something that stands for both your personal values and dreams. Beautiful. Shakina, Nur Maslifa, Kash, Sophia, Francesca, wonderful. I believe that your career is literally your path to enlightenment in your life. It is the path to psychological freedom. It's the path for you to be able to experience, express, and to be able to come out of all of your fears that life presents to you. But this is really an existential perspective. So if you're an existential psychologist, you probably would understand this. Something that defines who you are actually. Presha, I think you won't know who you really are until you begin to experience things, and these experiences bring light and bring forth something in you that you never even knew existed. So for example, I love my 8 hours of sleep. I absolutely love it. I don't like anybody disturbing my sleep. But when I was doing EAP and I had a hotline, before this as well, because I'm the youngest child, everyone used to say like, oh, Hital, you're not responsible as the youngest child. Your brother and sister are always looking after you, whatever not. But the moment I had a hotline, right? The moment I had a hotline, a phone on my hand, and I knew I was responsible, I literally would pick up the phone at 3:30, and if there was a suicide mission or like anything at all, I would definitely be there with the highest level of responsibility. So I wouldn't say that it is something that is who you are. I think it is a chance that you give the experience to bring out this wonderful thing that you didn't even know that you had in you, okay? Yeah, Kash, sleep is like really, really everything. Your career is essentially one of many paths that bring both good and bad times, but will still build character. Zinesh, wonderful. And Zinesh is also my cousin and nephew. Really proud of you, Zinesh. That's a really wonderful way of saying it. Who is it Lechpe? Care. Oh my God, that is wonderful. Your career is something that you break it up and it's care. So it's something that you care about or you about? I'm not sure. Wonderful. Excellent. Lechpe, thank you so much. Yeah, maybe, I really believe that there's so much wisdom in a name, and maybe the word career comes from that word called care. Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. Wonderful. Good job. Okay. I'm taking that one. No copyrights from you, Lechpe. This is the goodness that I get out of giving goodness back as well. I'm just joking. So wisdom in a name, and I'd just like to introduce all of you to a concept called emotional labor, okay? When you sign up for a job, you're going to be signing up for labor, as in physical labor to get a job done. But what nobody tells you is that you're also going to sign up for something called emotional labor, which is really your heart. Okay, it's not just the ability that you have to get something done, but it's how much of your heart would you be willing to sacrifice for that labor. And there are many people who are in jobs that they sign up for, which is sacrificial. Nurses, for example, doctors, for example, firemen, for example, they sign up for it because they love the ability to sacrifice themselves. But not all of us sign up for it. And this is where I'd like to point out to all of you, I really hope that when you sign up for your career, you make a decision not to sacrifice all of yourselves, but only the parts that you feel is really, really worth sacrificing. Okay? Because otherwise, if you're going to be embarking in a career, especially as young ones, you're going to take on a lot of burden. And I don't want you to die in the cocoon. What that really means is if you look at the caterpillar moving into the butterfly, almost about 95% of caterpillar will never make it to a butterfly. 95%. Only 5% of caterpillars actually become butterflies. You have that freedom and that color to be who you are and to be able to make the best out of it. Only 5% of us actually get it. Because it's either we die in the cocoon, that we die in the system, we die because it's not the right match, whatever not, or the environment is not really protecting us. For example, a cocoon would die because of the rain, the storm, or even one of us spraying pesticide on it. Okay, so the only way to really make it from caterpillar to butterfly is to learn how to look after yourself, number one. And please never do anything for anybody except for yourself, okay? Especially your career. Please make it about you. It is your career, not your mother's career, not your father's career, not anybody's career. It's your career. So on one hand, make sure that you look after yourself on the inside, but make sure you have a good group of people to look after you on the outside. It's not only about swipe or match, but it's the whole entire experience around your career. So, okay. So what really leads to a match? And now I'm going to get into a little bit of research, but I'll try to make this fun, okay? I hope this really makes sense so far. And if you don't agree with anything, please feel free to voice it out. I am absolutely excited always to be challenged. And I think it's a very important part as psychologists to be able to learn how to speak up as well and obviously say it in a nice way as well, whether you agree or disagree with certain things, okay? So what really leads to a match? Okay. If you have watched Auntie Seema on Netflix, which is about Indians who get matchmade by this auntie called Auntie Seema, you would realize that Auntie Seema uses a lot of different things. Auntie Seema uses the person's career, the person's likes, dislikes, history, financial status, all kinds of things. But in that series, unfortunately, she does a million things. But in the end, none of the couples actually really got a match. And even if they did, we don't know whether they'll live happily ever after. So I like to bring forth Boxall and Purcell 2003 definition of performance, okay? A definition of performance, meaning what would really make you want to perform in a particular environment, okay? And Boxall and Purcell, they've done loads and loads of research to really find out what performance is, because it's so hard to quantify what would make a person perform or not. So after decades of centuries of research, they came up with the fact that performance is a function of A, abilities. So your abilities. Number 2, your motivation. And number 3, the opportunities that are presented forth to you or the ones that you create. Okay? So it is not only about whether or not you're going to be able to do something, it is also about your motivation to do it, which includes your values and also the opportunity. Now, my question to all of you is very interesting, right? A lot of the people who are hiring you, they would say that, all right, we will only hire people who have maybe 3 to 5 years of experience, but all of you obviously don't have enough experience. You've just come out, right? So when will you actually ever get a job if everybody's always looking for abilities, which includes skills, experience, knowledge, whatever not? So my question to all of you is, what do you think is like it's like a chicken and egg kind of thing, okay? But what do you think is the origin of performance? Do you think it's abilities, motivation, or opportunity? What do you think is the origin, the birthplace of where, you can actually begin to cook this wonderful food called performance? What do you think is the most important thing? Abilities, motivation, or opportunity? What do you think is the most important thing? Abilities, motivation, or opportunity? Yes, okay. The birthplace of everything is motivation, okay? So motivation, okay, comes from the word movement. Motivation, it's your motive. Okay, it's your motive, meaning it is your basically the why behind what you do. Uh, and it also comes from the word motier, which is movement. And also motier comes from the word movement of energy, okay, which is emotion. So long story short, motivation has so much to do with energy and so much to do with movement of energy in order to be able to get what it is that you want. Okay, so if I'm not motivated, I'm not going to care about my performance. Yeah, if I'm not motivated, if you don't motivate me, I'm not going to care about your performance. If I don't want, exactly, okay? So motive is actually, so if you understand the world, right, it's quantum physics. The whole world is made up of energy. You can't see it, but it exists. And as psychologists, I really, really hope that you believe in the things that you can't see and begin to question these invisible forces. These invisible forces have been proven by quantum physicists, have been proven also by the likes of Einstein in the sense of energy. Okay, so everything that happens in the world is made up of energy. Everything that exists in the world is energy. Energy cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be what? Cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. It can only be, if you can guess this, you are awesome. Energy cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be so this idea of energy cannot be created, transferred, or transformed. Beautiful. Excellent. I won't go into too much of detail about energy, but you get the point. Okay, energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. For example, right, like water never dies. Water never dies, right? It evaporates, it goes up to the clouds, it comes back down again, it probably gets frozen. It never dies. Nothing ceases to exist. Nothing, nothing is created, nothing gets destroyed. This is constantly transforming over and over and over again. Okay, so the same thing with what leads to a match, right? It is really about your motivation and how you motivate that person in your life as well. Okay, so one thing that I realized, okay, so if I can share with you, I'm not sure whether my team members are here today in the chat function. I haven't had a chance to check yet. But let me give you a couple of stories about how some of them got their jobs, okay? So Nurul, for example, she is just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And Nurul actually got sent to my way and became part of OPsych, even though she doesn't have a psychology background, because she had an interview with somebody else or a conversation with somebody else. And that person really saw something beautiful about her. And that person was really motivated to make sure that Nurul would have, that person did it out of goodwill. In person, when the guy's name is Daniel. Daniel, when he interacted with Nurul, he was like, she's such a good person. And because of Nurul's motivation, Daniel was motivated to find somebody who would hire her. And that's when I was just looking out for somebody, Daniel said, hey, why don't you look at Nurul? And when I spoke to Nurul, I was just really motivated by her motivation. Okay, that's one way of getting a job. That's one way of finding a match. And I would definitely say that even though Nurul doesn't really have a psych background or whatever, it didn't really matter. Because she was motivated and she finds opportunities, eventually her abilities come about as well. Another team member that I have is Vinushki. Vinushki, for example, had a friend who contacted me and said, she's looking out for a job, whatever not. When I met Vinushki, I just fell in love with her straight away. She's super dedicated. And even though the abilities is a question because you are literally an intern, you haven't even completed your degree, but she seizes every single opportunity and strength by strength, like a monkey bar, you just keep trying and you try and you try. And your motivation and the opportunities that you take give birth to your abilities as well. The same thing with Manisha, who's joined us as well recently. She found me on LinkedIn. She told me, I've watched you on BFM. I would love to have a conversation with you. I would love to get a job. And when I spoke with her during the interview, she said, I really, really want something so that I can prove myself. And it just, her energy moved me. Okay. And you'll be surprised how much your enthusiasm can really, really move the elder folks who might be a little bit more cynical or tired or whatever. Okay, so please note that even if you feel you don't have the ability, your motivation and the opportunities that you take can give you everything, can give you every single thing that you desire. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do now is that I'm going to just introduce you to a few concepts that I would like you to maybe either screenshot or take up at your own time, because we also work with many organizations to figure out what is the process for hiring and what is the process for which when we hire somebody, we feel that they are a good enough match to, because it's not only you matching with us, in organizations, we are also figuring out whether you are a match for us, right? It's really like a marriage. So in terms of personality, I think some of you may have heard about OCEAN, which is openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness. You probably have heard of this before, correct? Okay, so you can read up a little bit about this, but I'd like to ask all of you, this is very scary, okay, because this is personality is not something that you can fix, okay, or that you should change. Your personality is your personality. I think if anybody tells you you need to change your personality, you should tell them you change your personality first, okay? Your personality is your birthright. It is your gift. It is what makes you truly special, and what makes you magical, okay? If you ask any fertility doctor, how do you create a baby? They will say, babies are miracles. So you are a miracle. You are who you are. Please do not ever attempt to change your personality. That is crazy, okay? You can modify your behaviors, but I think your personality is really who you should be. So what I'd like you all to do now, could you take a pen and sign with your preferred hand, okay? So take a pen and sign it with your preferred hand. Okay, now, just observe what that signature looks like and then swap hands. And with your weaker hand, I would like you to sign your signature again. All right, and now I'd like you to observe what this new signature looks like with the weaker hand. Okay. So this is a classic exercise that we use to explain to people the difference between personality and behavior modification. Yeah, it's really ugly, right? Isn't it? Okay, so the original hand by which you sign, that is your personality. That's who you really are. Okay, and it's beautiful, it's easy, it's effortless. You get to be who you are freely. Okay, but if you do it on the other hand, okay, that is you trying to change your personality. It looks very ugly, not only to you, but to other people. And it looks very fake. Okay, it looks ugly, it looks fake. So don't try to be somebody that you're not. However, if I keep asking you to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice using the other hand, okay, do you think you're going to get better at it? And do you think your signature might look a little bit better over a period of time? Francesca Faker. But over a period of time, if I keep getting you to exercise your other hand, you probably will start doing better and probably start looking better. But if I ask you which hand do you prefer using, you probably go back and say, oh, I prefer my original hand. However, because you have attempted and you have tried, you are also able to do things that you are not comfortable with, you don't really like, but you begin to be good at something. It doesn't mean that you like it, you love it, or it's you, but you become able to. So you now have new abilities, new superpowers, but you don't really love it, but you are able to do it. Okay? And I think everybody should strive to be able to do things that is outside of you, and that's really about your comfort zone. Okay, but if you overdo it, I'm telling you, this is where depression, anxiety, and whatever starts. Okay, if you begin to use only the opposite hand, that's where a disconnection happens. You're not going to be happy with your life. Okay, but it is beautiful to be able to use both and come back to the origin itself. So the first part of it is the original part. Original hand is your personality. The other one is behavior modification. Okay, you're able to modify your behavior. You're able to learn new things that is outside of your current capacity. Okay. All right. And yeah, the point that everybody will tell you is try not to do things that you're not good at. Try to always find people who are really good at it and partner and collaborate and ride on your strengths. But make sure that you also do your part and at least find some way to be able to do these things. After you're able to do it, you can just say, I'll find somebody else to do it. Okay? Like washing dishes and whatever not. Okay? If we are able to do it, but you don't like it, it's not really our style, you can always delegate it. But you have to learn how to do it first. Now, okay, in terms of personality, this is actually, yeah, a very simple free assessment tool that maybe all of you can kind of do it right now and I can walk you through it. So please log on to 123test.com. It's your DISC personality test. And maybe if I can get some help here, I'm going to stop screen share. I'm going to share my, I'm going to share. Okay, I'm going to share my entire screen and walk you through it. Are you all able to see the full screen? Yeah, okay, good. So log on to 123test.com. And look out for DISC. Okay, so look out for DISC. Sorry, yeah. Okay, so it should be this, and click on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up on the here. Okay, I'm putting it up on YouTube. Okay, and take maybe about 15 minutes to do this very, very quickly. Okay, so each box you have to only choose one that is very much like you and one that is least like you. Okay, you're not supposed to go like, dislike, dislike. It won't work. You have to look at all of it and choose the one that is most like you and the one that is least like you and complete all of it. Okay, so please do this as quickly as possible because we don't have too much of time. I'm just going to fake it, but please, you guys don't follow me. I'm going to fake it so that I get a report and I can show you guys the report. If you all have any questions, please ping me on the YouTube comment section, I guess. Oh, and make sure you complete all as well. You don't have to fill in the demographics. I'll explain to you in a bit. Okay, when you are done, if you're done, could you please just ping me on the YouTube comment section so that I know how to move on, yeah? Hi everyone, I hope that you are done. Are you done or still going? Almost done. Okay, that's really good, Francesca. Thank you so much. I'm really proud of all of you. Thank you so much for just like staying in touch on the chat function so I know what's going on as well. Because you know, psychologists can't really read people's mind, right? Okay, we're going to give it exactly 2 more minutes and then I'd really like to walk you through the findings, and also I'd like to walk you through other things that you might miss out on, okay? All right. Okay, very good. I'm seeing that most of you are completed. I'm just going to give everybody just 1 more minute, and so hopefully, you know, we don't get too much of a struggle. Okay, when I get at 3:42 on my screen, I will stop. All right, the rest of you, you can just press next, okay? If you're done, you don't really have to complete the demographics, yeah, unless you really want to. Also, this is not my website, so don't worry about it. And this website doesn't belong to your school, so nobody's going to get the report except for you, okay? So as you can see, this is the pie chart, okay? The pie chart is something that I would like you to make sure that you take a screenshot of it and then keep it for your future reference. Every 6 months, you can do something like this, yeah? And if you want to, at the bottom of it somewhere, I think you can, I don't see a reason for you to purchase the report yet, but I think there is a place for you at the end for you to share this test. You can email it to yourself, okay, and read it later as well. All right, okay, so shall I go through this with you right now? Have you guys ever done a personality assessment before? Have you ever done a personality assessment before? Okay, so some of you, yes. What kind of assessment tools have you done before? Okay, what kinds? Like what tool was it called, guys, ladies? Okay, so you've gone, okay, all right. So you've done quite a few. Okay, well done, everyone. So you've done quite a few. This is so you've got 16 PF, MBTI, Ocean, yep, 15 plus, 16 PF, MBTI. Okay, all right. Okay. So a lot of you have done a lot of things. And most of them would kind of fall under the spectrum of Ocean, okay? Most of them would fall under the spectrum of Ocean. Just for the sake of this one, yeah? So you've already completed the test, the assessment. So typically these are the categories, okay? Very similar to Ocean, but let me just quickly explain. Dominance, of course, we had to change the word to driver because the people who have dominance didn't like the word dominance. So they're like, please use the word driver. Quite forceful, force of character, very driven, so on and so forth. The values are also very similar towards that, okay? Influence is all about people, selling, ideas, marketing. Steadiness, they are very like status quo. They love, you know, everybody to be like close, harmonious. And then there's compliance or conscientiousness, which is policy writing, engaging know-how, whatever not. You can take screenshots of this, no problem, okay? Now, Google has actually done a bit of research to find out which types of employees are most well suited for Google, and also maybe the ones that also research has shown that there is one type of personality that tends to perform the best. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about that research, but I tend to agree with it from an experiential basis. But I don't really have that personality, so that scares me a little. So which one do you think it is? Which one do you think is the most important for ultimately for performance? Yeah, the ability to perform, the ability to stay longer in that particular career, the ability to see things through. Which one do you think it is? D, I, S, or C? I'm gonna go back to the Are you all saying the ones that you are, like Francesca? Is it S? Is it D? Is it because you are that? Prisha, S. No. Okay. So quite a lot of research actually suggests that conscientiousness is probably the one that is going to give you, ultimately the ability to stick through something and give you, the desired performance because of that consistency of being able to get something done. Yeah, so it's conscientiousness, okay? So a lot of research actually states that not only conscientiousness, but a combination of IQ and conscientiousness. So abstract reasoning together with conscientiousness. So that's not really under personality, that's under abilities. Okay, so under abilities, you have verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, and abstract reasoning. Might be going a bit fast here, okay? But so you've got personality, then you've also got reasoning abilities. So a reasoning ability is the ability to reason with certain fronts, and whether or not you do it faster than the person next to you. So abstract reasoning is an assessment tool. You can go 123test.com. I love it because it's free, but the validity is also questionable, okay? So abstract reasoning is basically like IQ. It is the ability for you to understand new information, be able to process it, and then to be able to do something about it faster than most people. So abstract reasoning combined with conscientiousness tends to be one of the biggest predictors of high performance and stuff like that, which is really sad for me because my abstract reasoning, my IQ is not so high. On top of that, my memory is not so high as well, so I tend to forget very easily, and then my conscientiousness is also low. But hey, I'm probably one of the more successful psychologists in at least Malaysia, so there's hope for the rest of us, okay? And not to worry, because of people like Malcolm Gladwell, we've got the outliers, okay? And so, it's not always the ones who are perfectly in a particular space or frame that do the best. But I think it's a combination of many things, yeah? So I think another thing that I would like to encourage all of you to have a go with is also Riazak. So I'm not going to be able to go through everything right now, but if you go to Riazak, you may have heard of it. Okay, let me know on the chat function whether you've ever heard of Riazak before. Riazak is basically your interest, and there's a lot of research out there that states that just like motivation, just because you have the ability to do something doesn't mean that you're motivated or interested. So Riazak is a very simple assessment tool, free. You can just go online and complete it to find out where your interests really lie. So they've got realistic, which is, all about like very methodical, practical, scientific, which is why within the field of psychology, you've got people who love the research part of things. And then you've got the people who are maybe like, so research realistic, right? So you could have people who are into the scientific aspects of psychology. Investigative could be like people who love, like Brain Brown, who investigate, who explore, what is that kind of research called, where you speak to lots of people and you begin to explore certain concepts. It's like anthropology or something like that. I'm not sure. Artistic, so you've got psychologists who love art therapy, who love to work with people on a creative spectrum, like music therapy, art therapy, so on and so forth. So even within the field of psychology, obviously then you've got the whole plethora of interests, right? Social would be like the parts where you begin to interact with clients, so on and so forth. So somebody like me, for example, I really struggled when I was doing psychology because everything was about statistics and was about theories, and I just love the social aspects of it. Enterprising is all about the ability to influence, persuade, and also a economic kind of a enterprise kind of a mindset. So like a bit entrepreneurial. So mine would definitely be entrepreneurial and social. And so that combination really makes me feel like I love my job a lot. And then there's the conventional as well, which is public policy. So you could be a psychologist in governmental settings where you're doing public policies and detail orientation. So maybe data gathering, putting things into reports, so on and so forth. So for example, an organizational psychologist friend of mine who is very detail oriented, very structured, very methodical. She works in a big corporate company where she looks after all the data. So she does realistic and conventional. So the closer it is, the more compatible. So basically, someone who's realistic would probably also have a lot of conventional and investigative elements to what it is that they're interested in, if that makes sense. Very rarely would you be interested in opposite spectrums of things, but it can happen as well. So for example, I'm social and realistic at the same time. So I love being with people, but at the same time, I like it to be very practical, methodical, structured. You do get people who are like that, definitely. Okay, so you can have a go at it. The next thing is that motivation or values, right? So under motivation, you've got interests, you've got values. So I'd like you to so I won't go into too much of detail for this one. I'll just send you right here. You could go on, these are all free assessment tools, okay? So you could go into www.valuecenter.com. It's a Barrett's values tool, I think, something like that. Okay, so it's an assessment tool by Barrett, and it gives you the are your values within yourself, and at what level is it, and all the way out to transcendental, meaning I value things to do with myself, I value things to do with relationships, I value things to do with the outside world, and to what extent is it. So for example, when I did mine was all above the 4 part, but mind you, when I started working, my values were between 1 to 3, because it was all about survival and self-esteem. I didn't have enough of self-esteem. And I was struggling with, will people like me in relationships that I have at work and stuff like that. But now that, mind you as well, I've been in the industry for over, as a psych, I've been practicing, or in the journey for 20 years, I've been practicing for at least about 15 years now. And it's moved up the ladder, okay? But I still do have, like, for example, some parts of my values, like, I think it's still a bit of self-esteem that pulls me back down to a lower level. Okay, so have a go at it. It will tell you what you're at, where you're at, and what is also pulling you backwards. Okay, so these are values. And then I can't really find anything right now, so I was trying to source for you guys. But remember, we talked about ability, which is potentially your competencies and your abilities, like in relation to your personality. Then you've got your motivation, but also opportunity. Not too many assessment tools out there on opportunity, but I think if you can go online and try to find something on entrepreneurship, the ability to spot opportunities and do something about it, and also creating long-term opportunities for yourself, which is resilience, that might be good for you. Okay, so have a go. But obviously the founding father for it would be Martin Seligman. So he would have a lot of tools, I think some free tools as well on his platform on positive psychology. Okay, so have a go at it as well. So coming back to it, I'm going to conclude, because I think I'm a little bit over time right now. I'm going to conclude that, this little caterpillar over here is emerging into a butterfly. And this caterpillar has certain abilities that is very special and unique to him or her since he or she was a baby. Like that mini me and like that mini you. And it's you, it's just who you are. So please check in with your parents, your loved ones, your friends. What is that special thing about you that you are able to do that most other people would struggle doing? Okay. These abilities, you can also go online and you can check, your personality and just see what is your real strength in terms of your ability. And also then recognize that just because you have strength in one area doesn't mean that you can't develop it, like your left hand or the opposite hand, right? But please always pay tribute to who you really are, and give that highest level of respect to who you really are, because that's the gift that has been bestowed upon you. That's ability. Motivation is what will move you and what will make you sacrifice beyond an economic exchange. So beyond the money that you are there for, you are willing to sacrifice emotional labor. You're willing to do more because of all the things that move you based on the values that you have, beyond that economic exchange. Okay. And lastly, in the cocoon, you can have all the ability and you can have all the motivation, but to move from the cocoon to the butterfly, you need to be able to seize all the opportunities to help you, either from within or from outside of you, but you will have to cross the line. And that means you will need to look out for opportunities and you need to learn how to market yourself. And yeah, then be able to take on that particular opportunity. So with this, I think I'm done, but okay, maybe really not yet done, but I'm never really done because psychology has so many things. I think one of the most important things to realize is when you make a decision about whether or not you are going to swipe or whether or not you're going to stay. Let me move here, yeah? Whether or not you decide to swipe or whether you stay, to me, it all depends on whether you are doing it because of fear or because you're doing it because of opportunity. Okay? If you swipe, you let go of something because you feel that you will not get something better, it's never really going to work out for you because you're operating from a space of fear and you're always going to be wondering whether you're good enough, whether the company will keep you, they will like you, whatever. But if you operate from a space of opportunity and you make decisions based on that, you will always be in a good space. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you swipe, whether you match, or whether you decide to be single the rest of your life. Okay? What matters is whether you are doing it from a place of self-esteem, a place of self-awareness, and a place of wanting to self-actualize, rather than a place of non-awareness, rather than a place of fear. Okay? So please, in the cocoon that we all are in perpetually, always raise your awareness about who you are from either assessment tools, from history, from the people around you. The second thing is to make sure that you know what butterfly you want to turn into, but more importantly, you move into the space of butterfly from a space of opportunity rather than fear. Okay? And with this, I think I am done. And I hope that it has been most meaningful for you. I apologize for any shortcomings on my part. And what I really, really like to point all of you out to is to please connect with me on LinkedIn, at least LinkedIn, or if you'd like to on Instagram and Facebook as well. And please keep in touch. And if ever I can be of any help to you, I would try my best. Okay? All right. So back to you guys. Can we maybe run the poll and then do the Q&A? I think we've got about 40 minutes left. Back to you, Kush. Thank you so much, Francesca, Jo Ping, and Sophia. Okay, so over here, okay, before I go forward, I think if you're interested in potentially having an opportunity to work with OPSYCH, please also do send us an email with your resumes, okay? So if you're interested in the opportunity of working with us, what we do is that we work with large corporations who are transforming, and we do a lot of facilitation in psychological resilience. We also do a lot of facilitation in terms of leadership. We work with some of the top leaders. We get a chance to do a whole plethora of things. So if you'd like to work with us, send us your resumes. We don't have too many opportunities at all. In fact, we're not really hiring, but I feel compelled to do my part as well. And I would let my other interns choose you guys as well. Okay, so please take that opportunity. I will pass you guys my email address. And yeah, and I think we are pretty good to our interns as well. We normally start by saying we will not really pay for interns, but within the first month, if you've done really well for yourself within the first month, we normally pay you or give you a pretty decent remuneration, and there is an opportunity as well to continue to be with us after that. And if not, then what I try to do normally is I try to put you in touch with my other interns in the past, or I try to put you in touch with other companies as well. Okay, so do reach out if I can be of any help, and I'll get my interns to also help you out. Okie dokes. So over here, 98% of you say that personality is important in seeking jobs. Yes, of course. It should be 100%. Okay, next. If my dream job doesn't suit my personality, I will consider to change it. The second one is 77% of you said that if your dream job doesn't suit your personality, you will consider to change your personality. You consider to change your job, or you consider to change your personality?
I think change their job.
Yeah, because I think within a few months, 3 months to 6 months, you probably know whether it really fits or it doesn't fit. Okay? But please never change or leave a job unless you have done everything in your power to learn everything possible and leverage on all the best of the relationships that you can. And then only you move because there is a better opportunity. Don't move because you don't like something, you're not happy or whatever, because there is this thing about energy, right? If you don't like something and you think the world is better somewhere else, your energy will follow you again. You will have to face whatever it is that you don't like until you learn how to like it, or until you find the lesson that needs to be learned. Okay, so please don't just hop around like, is it kota or is it kata or kota? Kata, right? Like, off from a boiling pot into a frying pan kind of a thing. Please don't ever do that. Don't do that even in your relationships. If it's boyfriends, girlfriend, whatever, don't jump around until you really explored, done your level best, learned from it, and then be a better person for the next one, okay? Because otherwise, you will continue to experience it until the lesson is learned. Better you learn the lesson young than, later on in life. Okay, all right. So next. I'm the type of person who likes to stick with the job I feel comfortable. Yeah, you should definitely stay where you're comfortable, 100%. But I think also if it is over comfort, to a point where it's not good for you, then move. And I think everybody should get into the hang of like maybe, every at least 2 years, consider where your movement is going to be, either internally within the organization or outside. Don't take too long to move. Keep moving as much as you can. But if it is a great space where there is so much to learn, and that could take you up to 5 years, go for it. It's fine. Like PhDs take 4 years because you need that 4 years to really learn about that subject. And I'll pass it to you, my friend, to don't play Tinder is the case. It's all right. Do what it is that you want to do. But, just don't waste your time. Just don't waste your time. If you don't know what you really want, like Spice Girls always, like Spice Girls song, right? Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. I wanna zigzag ah. that zigzag ah is not helpful. So if you're on Tinder and you are like zigzag ah, and the other person is also zigzag ah, both of you are going to zigzag ah all over the place and waste each other's time. Sit down there and know your butterfly. This is what I want. This is who I want. And it's okay if you don't know, but it's not an excuse to not do something about it. Okay, meaning go online and for example, if it's Tinder relationship, go on the 5 love languages, for example. These are the 5 love languages that I love. Tell the guy or the girl that is matching with you before you meet on a date, what are your love languages? Are you willing to give me what it takes or whatever not, okay? So I can't believe we're talking about Tinder now. But it's very important, okay? A big part of your career, a big part of your your success in your career, a huge part, if not all of it, has to do with the person that you end up with too. Okay, so I mean, especially women, right? Like, because unfortunately sometimes the emotional load is on women with regards to kids and whatever not. That partnership that you have with your person, your special person, is very important. Okay, I see all of you are laughing, and that's great. Okay, let's go.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank you for the interesting talk. It was very insightful for me as well. So now, if you guys have any questions, you may ask on the YouTube chat on the right, and we'll have some questions up on the screen right now. So for the first question, all right. So are the use of questionnaires the only way to consider personality when determining a vacation match? By Alan Roy.
Um, are the use of questionnaires the only way to consider personality? Okay, so okay, this is where biases come in. Okay, so larger organizations, they would try to remove all kinds of biases by putting you through competency assessments, personality assessments, whatever not. And majority of organizations that we work with, we are very, very strict about making sure that the interview process is unbiased, and therefore utilizing all kinds of validated tools to be able to really understand who this person is and yada yada. So let me give you an example of what happens if you don't use assessment tools. So there was this study that was done, and CEOs were asked to hire who hire somebody based on the CVs that they had. And so when they read the CVs, but the CVs didn't have the person's name, they didn't have the gender, whatever not. Okay, so the CEOs actually criticized all of them, a lot of them, and then picked out one of them. But after that, we gave the CEOs the names of these people or whatever not, and the CEOs realized that some of them were their children over there. And so they were like, oh my God, we didn't pick our own children. And so that was really quite helpful, because if it was their children, they would have been biased, right? They would have probably chosen their kids thinking that they are the best. So I think it's very important to make sure that whatever you do to make sure that whether there's a match or not match is an unbiased, structured way of assessing it. However, I can guarantee you majority of interviews are not about assessment tools, they are about likability. Okay, so there's a lot of biasness when people, if you don't use assessment tools and you are hired without an assessment tool, it is probably because you are liked. And you are liked because you are like the interviewer. So people hire who they like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's like if you are likable, there's a higher chance for you to get an interview or a job.
Absolutely. So there's a likability bias. Now, likability bias is a couple of things, right? Number one, unfortunately, the top thing is looks. Okay, so how you look really, really matters. So, when people tell you dress up properly and stuff like that, it's true. Dress up properly. Okay, I don't like it. I hate dressing up. I hate wearing suits. I love being in my beach shorts, whatever not. But dressing up and outward appearance is so important. The other thing that happens is that males tend to get preferred over females a lot of the time, especially if you're tall, dark, male who is good looking and has a bit more muscle, because evolutionary perspective, that already makes you look a bit more successful, and then people assume that you would make the organization successful. So women, don't worry too much about it. Just make sure that you have, as always, component of likability, and showcase all the good things that you've done in the past as well. Height matters as well, unfortunately. So many different types of unconscious biases as well. Okay, which is why I think a lot of countries, they make it illegal to ask some of these questions, or you don't even meet the person, gender is not revealed, whatever not, when you are in that hiring process. Go ahead, next question.
Okay, yeah, next question.
Oh, sorry, same with Tinder, yeah? The same thing with Tinder and whatever not. When you go for a guy or girl, that's your own bias. You're not going to do an assessment tool. You're going to look straight away. Okay, and that's the biggest problem. So don't do that.
And that's how
Don't
Tinder
do
works
that.
anyway. It's just
Sorry?
the looks first before the personality.
Exactly. Okay, and then you're gonna have to live with this person forever. So make sure that you do an assessment. Okay, as if you're a psych, make sure that if you're going for a match, get them to do an assessment before that.
So
Okay,
the second
next.
question: should I go with passion or profit? I.e., something I'm passionate about or something that would ensure a comfortable future. By Nick Muhammad Haikal.
That's such a wonderful question. I would say go for profit. I'm joking. Okay. How do I do this? Why can't you have both? Why can't you have both, right? So, for example, let me give you an example. Okay, this sounds really terrible, but sometimes the more money I make, the more passionate I get about a project as well. All right, and
Yeah, I
then
would agree.
sometimes the more passionate I am about something, the more money I get out of it as well. Okay, or value at least. Okay, so for example, I'm really not passionate about doing. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm really not passionate about working with students, for example. I'm so sorry,
No
but
problem.
I found a reason to do it recently when I started working with 8-year-olds. I realized that there is just so much of joy working with younger people, like so much of joy working with younger people. And I realized that their fears were my fears. And I was like, I really got to do something as well. And I was like, no, the moment I started feeling a bit more passion for it, we've been working with a lot more universities, and that passion has given us so much of profit. So now, I get to meet somebody like ISNI, for example. I get to do something like this, which is so enjoyable. I have actually gotten, a couple of universities saying, can we make you an adjunct professor? Would you like to do large corporate initiatives with us? So although it's something that I didn't want to do, but the moment I started finding a bit of passion for it, everything came in as well. So I think let it flow, let your intention, a good intention, flow wherever you want it to go, and try to bring both in. You can be passionate about anything as long as you see some value and connection to your own life to it. You can get passionate about water. You can get passionate about washing dishes. You can get passionate about anything. I mean, if somebody pays you $1 million, right? Suddenly, yeah, okay, washing dishes is great. Yeah, I'm super passionate about it, right? So it kind of just let your right intention flow, and it will bring you a lot of great things as well. So I think, yeah, intention over passion or profit.
All right, can we go to the next question?
Yeah.
How concrete is our personality according to the test, and how does that factor into how concrete a job suitability would be for us? By Sean Kill.
All right. How concrete is our personality according to the test, and how does that factor into how concrete? Okay. Is that okay, Sean? Yes, Sean. What a nice name, Sean. That also helps you get hired, by the way. names get you hired as well. So yeah, I'm surprised I got hired as a Hatel, for example. Sean, okay, I can tell you one thing for sure. Organizations have not figured out, psychologists have not figured out what is the best personality tool, for example, okay, or a vocational fit tool. Okay, so if you go to different organizations, they're all measuring it differently. Even within the organization, because they are not psychologists, and they're all not trained to be able to understand it, they don't know how to use it. Okay, so how concrete is our personality according to tests? Cannot lah. I mean, you cannot say that Hatel is DISC. Impossible. But it gives you a rough estimate, and it kind of gives you a pretty good, maybe 70% validity, test, retest, reliability about who you are, and I like it. Okay, I kind of like it, but how you use it, and are you using it in the best light, the best advantage for the intended outcome? That is a secondary thing, which most companies have not figured out how to do it well. So yeah, unfortunately, Sean, I have to say that I think even organizations don't really know how to do job matches properly using assessment tools, and actually it's quite criminal to be doing it that way. Yeah, so let your personality shine, I guess, through conversations and telling stories and stuff like that as well. Okay, but it gives you 70%, which is good. I think Faizan asked a question. Do you have any advice for students that haven't found their passion or ambition? Okay, my advice for students who have not found their passion or ambition is that is nonsense. Okay, there is no way that you could be 20 years old and not have found your passion or an ambition. You just have not taken a pen and paper and written down the things that have given you joy in your life, and you may not have paid attention to recognizing it. Does that make sense? You've lived for 20 years. Something must have made your heart go a little bit like lub dub, right? Something must have made you feel like I want to wake up the next day. Something must have made you feel like I want to be a psychologist. So I would definitely say take a book down, write down all the things that you love doing. Or if you don't know it for yourself, ask people around you what is it that they see that you're good at. And by the way, okay, I don't think people find their passion or find their ambition. Okay, I don't think you find it. I think it is in you, number one, and you kind of create it along the way. Okay, you don't go traveling 72 countries in the world and then you find it in Iraq. It's not located there. It's not located somewhere in this unknown thing. And I think that's something that people confuse you about. Okay, so it's very confusing when people say that. You are passionate, you are ambitious, and you have been from the day that you were born. You just have to write it down. It's not some miracle kind of a thing, okay? And if you don't know what it is, then maybe just ask yourself, where do I find that my energy moves towards? Who do I find my energy moves towards? What environments do I find? So that movement of energy is bringing me in what kind of direction, okay? So please never believe that lie that you don't know your passion or your ambition. But there are workshops maybe that you can go for that can help you to learn how to write it down or help you to learn how to realize it. But the 3 things that I think you should immediately do, number 1, take pen and paper, okay? Number 2, pin down the goals, meaning write all evidence down of all the things that you like, you don't like. The word passion is so big. My dear friend, my dear friend who said career is about care and maybe passion is about what you pass and what is on. Okay, like passion, right? Okay, so
Yeah,
what do you
true,
pass
yeah.
and what do you take on? Okay, so then just write down like, what do I pass and what do I take on, and then also think about what really. Okay, so the thing that I think this is a very, very important point. Yeah. Don't worry about your career. Really focus on what pain you would love to solve or what problems you would love to solve. Okay? So I would definitely recommend forget even the fact that you are a psychologist or that you want to be a psychologist. What are the problems that you see in the world that you would love to solve, and then maybe just move in that kind of a direction. Okay? Never bother about people. Just don't bother about people. Okay? Just think about the problems that you'd love to fix, that you'd love to solve. Okay, all right, let's go. We've got like 20 minutes. I'd just like to try to answer as many questions as possible.
Yeah, let's get to the next question. All right, what do you suggest people do between finishing their degree and starting their master's? Something that can help people be more sure of their master's decision.
Work.
Right.
Work. Get as much work experience as possible, whether it's being a resident assistant, whether it is being the president of a student council, whether it is running a restaurant, because entrepreneur skills are so important, whether it is running a social media platform about mental health, whether it is joining a company like OPsych, whether it is interning for clinical psychologists. Whatever it is, beg, borrow, steal, find your way, put your foot in the door and say, I'll do it for free. I mean, the fact that you paid for an education, don't stop yourself because somebody's not paying you to get an experience. I would rather pay for an experience than to pay for an education, if that makes sense. So number 1, 100%, take any job. Take every job, hopefully purposefully, hopefully a bit more purposefully. Write articles. Imagine that you are an author. Imagine that you are a YouTuber. You can even you can even start your own YouTube channel and interview 100 psychologists. You can do anything these days with social media. Anything. So please don't sit down and say we can't do anything. Think about what you'd like to do and find 100 possible ways of being able to do it. 100, not like 1 or 2 or 3, just 100. And try to get a few friends to do it together so that you don't feel scared and alone doing it. I hope that makes sense, okay? If you're not happy with the answer, you feel like you need a bit more juice or beef to it, then just continue chatting with us, okay?
So is there any questions that you want to pick out or from YouTube?
Yeah, I think let's just go one by one. I can see, I thought my passion was to become a therapist. But I'm beginning to doubt that, and I'm a little demotivated in my studies. Is that a sign that that isn't my passion? Have you even tried being a therapist yet? Okay, studies is totally different, okay? You are demotivated about your studies for many reasons. Number one, because studying is boring. Okay, studying is really, really boring, and you don't understand what is the link between this shit that the stuff that I'm reading, sorry, and the stuff that I'm going to be able to do with my life. And so you don't see a link. The reason why you're demotivated is because you're not moving, right? You're not moving because there's a disconnection. There's no engine. Okay, so you're not moving because there's no connection. The car can only move, is motivated to move when the whole thing is all connected. So you're not finding a connection over there. Okay, but have you even tried getting connected? Have you tried being a therapist, speaking to a therapist, reading about? So there's a book called You Should Talk to Someone. It's written by a therapist, and she was a journalist before that. It's a wonderful book about her experience being a therapist. There's so many books about therapy. There's so many great therapists in Malaysia. Have you spoken to them? Have you tried doing practicing therapy on some of your classmates? Yeah, so have you found some ways to connect with that particular job and explore maybe other jobs as well? So I think don't give up on anything until you have found ways to connect with it, okay? Have you gone through every YouTube in the world about therapy? Right? There's so many great people on YouTube, so many great therapists on YouTube. Watch them and see whether you'd like to be like them, right? And talk to your friends. I think one of the biggest problems with all of you as students, all of the kids that I spoke to who are 8 to 10 years old, all of the leaders that I speak to every other day, and including myself, the biggest problem is that we don't pick up the phone. We don't talk to somebody else who can help us or to make some connections. Okay, so please get connected. Pick up the phone and get connected. Okay, and then when you talk about it, you feel it, you experience it, you kind of understand it. There are so many free resources. There are so many free circles these days, you know, like Lean In, for example. My neighbor runs a Hope Meditation Center where she does circles. It's almost quite therapeutic, all for free. All for free. So go and get, I think the issue is resourcefulness and connecting yourself with all of these resources and then making a decision after that. And by the way, Joping, I hope I don't sound arrogant right now when I speak, or I hope I don't sound overly confident. I was just as scared as any one of you. Absolutely. It's so normal to be afraid. So normal to be afraid. I really hope I don't come across as overconfident or putting you down in any way at all. Okay, I'm really coming from a space of reach out and talk to people around you. Okay, because you can't do this on your own. It's a whole field outside of you. And I still do that all the time. I have so many great people that I have to talk to because I don't know. I can't understand a lot of things. Okay. Wow, there's so many questions. Who do you guys talk to? You have so many questions here. How have you been asking questions in the past? Okay. There are some people who don't want to make their passion into a career because it'll make them see like a chore or feel obligated instead of feeling joy. Is this like a preference matter? Yeah, like Ivy, I realized that I'm really good in art, but I'm never going to make it into my career because I'm just not. able to think about how I'm going to commercialize this whole thing in my life. I think ultimately you want your career to commercialize, to be an economic exchange of sorts as well, right? But there are many people who have turned art into huge commercial ventures where, I mean, I think the other day somebody was telling me that they had bought a painting from a Malaysian artist called Fuad, if I'm not wrong, for over $1 million, one art piece. So, I mean, hey, I think you really you can do whatever you want to do as long as you have found a way to be really consistent in that mission of creating a field. You know, when you're passionate about something, you're going to be creating a field that nobody has heard of. So that warrants a lot of energy, that warrants a lot of vision, that warrants not really sleeping, that warrants no like work-life balance. So I think when you are really passionate about something, it's commercializing it might be a potential issue, and that's the only reason why you think like, should I or should I not pursue it, because of the commercial aspects of it. Like that's the major reason why people don't pursue passion, because they don't see the commercial part of it, or that in that industry it is very rare that people really commercialize or are able to really get the profits out of it. Okay, but hey, world is your oyster, man. World is your oyster. Think about it, like Virgin Airline dude, what's his name, Richard Branson. He was very much into music, right? Like very much into music, from Virgin Records to everything else. So I would also say that why don't you think about realistically who you'd like to be and then work backwards. For example, I really love Taylor Swift. You know, she's my jam. I could be her. Then turn it all around and imagine you're the caterpillar. How are you going to get to Taylor Swift, right? But also, okay, here's something that I really need to explain to you. It's not about you, okay? It's not about you. It's about forces. Okay, it's about forces and movement in the world. So how well an industry does is all about the economic forces, okay? So economic forces, supply and demand, will create an industry force, okay? So that's why people say like, okay, don't join the arts or whatever not. Because the world hasn't come to a realization that art is, for example, art is so valuable and should be pegged at such a high price. Because the world hasn't seen it, then the economy of it goes down because of the demand and supply, and therefore that impacts the industry, and therefore that impacts the chances, not the ability, the chances of success in that particular potential trajectory of you having that passion, if that makes sense. Okay, or the competition is too high, like for example in India, everybody wants to be an actor. Okay, so the demand is very supply is very high, the demand is very small because you can only produce X number of movies, for example. Okay? So you really want to look at demand and supply. This is where psychology is brilliant, because it's such an untapped world. Such an untapped world. And there's so much of demand out of it right now. So much of demand. It's untapped. So do it. You can turn anything into psychology. The psychology of music, the psychology of art, the psychology of whatever you want, just put psychology there and then it becomes psychology of.
All right, can we pick just one final question?
Yep, absolutely.
Do you want to pick from the YouTube?
Would you like to pick?
Sure, why not? By Sakina Lewis, is it? She asks, how important is education as far as getting a job is concerned? Is experience more valuable than education, or vice versa?
Oh, I think Shakina, like hands down, experience is so important. You can also see the Teslas of the world saying that we don't care about education. Education makes you stupid. And we actually prefer people who are not so educated. The same for me, like I would hire definitely for experience. However, a very conventional market, very conventional job, or a very traditional job or role would require you to have a certain educational qualification. For example, if you want to be a psychologist, you will have to make sure that you get the qualifications for it, because the qualification includes the level of experience required to be able to practice on that job as well. Okay, so think about who you want to be and work backwards. Yeah, 100% experience, 100% experience. You could be an intern, but like for example, some of my interns are, like, they have led sports groups before. They have been, a student council. They have run their own projects. All of these things that just, make me feel so in awe of them, and it moves me to wanting to hire them, rather than I got a degree in blah 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 and that's it, right? Alrighty, my dears, we are at 4:30. What are we gonna do
Yeah.
now?
I think that'll be all for the questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much, Miss Hetal Doshi, for her time and her valuable contributions. That was very insightful for me, and I think for everyone here as well watching you. I just want to say thank you very much, and yeah,
Thank you so
happy
much too.
International Women's Day, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Are we able to take a group photo with all of your friends who have put this together as well?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Let's do that.
All right. I'd like everybody to
Oh
please.
no, okay. I think we'll do that later. Is that okay?
Okay, we'll do that later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll do
perfect.
that later.
Yeah. Thank you so much, team Psychedemics, right?
Yeah, and IMWBA, yeah.
And IMWBAA as well for
Yeah.
putting this together, for getting such a great bunch of people together. Thank you, all of you, for participating, and I wish you the best butterfly in the whole world. And please reach out at all. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. We will. And yeah, that is all for me. And Miss Itoloshi will pass it back to you, Ma. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Miss, for such an insightful talk today. And thank you, Kash, for hosting the session just now, and also participants. Thank you very much for staying until the end of this event. Before I end the event, we would like to invite Tunku Izni for a little small sharing session.
Hi everyone, I am Tunku Izni Kistina, the head of Psychedemic. Basically, we're the extension of IMW School of Psychology, and we operate as a psychology club as well. So first of all, I would like to thank IMWBAA, Ms. Hetal Doshi, OSAI, as well as my team, Psychedemic, who worked so hard to make this event collaboration happen. Of course, thank you so much to everyone who participated to this event. I hope today's session benefit you in some ways, because it's a process of discovering yourself. However, please note that discovering yourself is a journey and it's never a race. It's only within you. And please stay tuned for more from Psychedemic, as we'll be handling more exciting events and cool stuffs. So please do follow us at Instagram Psychedemic. And thank you so much. Happy International Women's Day to everyone, to all great women out there. And thank you so much. Back to you, Ma.
Thank you so much, Tunku. That's interesting. If anyone interested to join our event, you can follow us on IMWBAA and Psychedemic in Instagram. So everyone, that's the end of our event today. So thank you for staying until the end, and stay safe. See you in our next event. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.